On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, we have reached the halfway point of the season, which means it's time to check in on everybody's favorite thing that we do on this here podcast, the Locked On Raptors annual over, under, and prop bet spectacular with Vivek Jacob and Saha Abdi. We will see who is in line to pick up the most important trophy in all of sports. Coming up on today's episode, let's get into it.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1319 of Locked On Raptors for Thursday, January the 12th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 9 seasons on various platforms. You can find all of my work over on Twitter at WoodleySean. You can also follow, subscribe to, rate, and review the podcast for free on your favorite podcast apps, of course. And we are also on YouTube. Go hit the big red subscribe button over there to support the show. And a reminder that if you send an email to lockedonraptors@gmail.com with both your a screenshot proving you are subscribed to the YouTube channel and a mention of your favorite deep cut Raptor of all time, you will be entered into a draw to win 2 tickets to the Raptors Republic live podcast extravaganza on February the 7th at the Rivoli in Toronto. So go do it. There's one person in there right now. Shout out to Martin Miller, who sent in an email and shouted out Bismack Biyombo as his favorite deep cut Raptor of all time. A very, very good selection indeed. A couple of also good selections are the 2 dudes we got on the podcast today. Let's get to it. Vivek Jacob is here, the 4-time Locked On Raptors over, unders, and props champion. It pains me to say it every single time, but I have to do it because it's written in the history books. Big V, how the hell are you?
I'm good. Obviously, one of our favorite episodes of the season, so very much looking forward to getting into it with you two.
Hell yeah. And Saha Abdi from Raptors Republic is also here. He will be there at the Rivoli on February the 7th on Queen Street West. Saha, buddy, how's it going? The one-time champion, I should say that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping you would say that at some point. It's good to be back. Happy New Year's. We haven't seen you guys since 2022, all 3 of us, so together at least. So it should be fun. This one should be fun. I always look forward to these.
And with that, we retire saying Happy New Year to people here on January the 12th. We get it. The new year is here. It's fine. I am, of course, 0-time over-unders and props champion, Sean Woodley. Let's get into it. Just a refresher on how this works. Before the season, we go through 18 over-unders and props, most of the lines set by yours truly, pretty capably, I might add, as someone who doesn't really gamble all that much. I think I nail this every single year. We go through, we each pick whether we think it's going to be over-under. In some cases, we just pick who we think is going to win a certain category or whatever, and whoever gets the most things right at the end of the season goes home with, we do have to, I think, craft a trophy. I think maybe I'm going to have to, do a really stupid expenditure that I can maybe write off on my taxes for just a very stupid plaque or trophy or both. Who's to say? But let's dive in. We're at the halfway point of the season. Let's see who is on track to go home with supremacy this year. All right, I'm just pulling up my little spreadsheet here. Let's begin, shall we? The first question on the board was Pascal Siakam, points plus rebounds plus assists per game. The over-under was set at 36.5. Last season, he had 36.6. This season so far, you might have heard, Pascal Siakam is pretty good. 40.6 total points, rebounds, assists combined per game. All of us took the over, so we all get the point there. Vivek, I will throw it to you to wax a little bit on Pascal's season. Did you expect he was going to come in so far ahead of the over-under we set at 36.5?
So far ahead, I think it was a question mark because of what we might have expected before the season from, Scottie Barnes potentially taking a leap and, Fred VanVleet bouncing back to all-star form. Those are the things we kind of anticipated. So far ahead, maybe not, but it's been amazing to see. And, I think that leap that he's talked about, just continuing to ascend towards being a top 5, top 10 player. Those are his goals. So I think he is well and truly moving into that echelon. Obviously, the big thing you look for if the Raptors make the playoffs is if it carries over into a postseason setting.
Sure.
I think that's when you can kind of stamp it. But so far, easily the best player on the Raptors, and has exceeded expectations by the most of any other player.
Yeah, and I should say, last year in the playoffs, I think you could argue that what he did in fact translate over, and the sort of gauntlet that he sees on every single offensive possession seems to kind of lend well to like preparing for the playoffs. It's not what you want to see him just plunging into three bodies every single time he has the ball in his hands. But hey, maybe if some other guys start to sort of continue their regression back to the mean here, it'll get a little easier for Pascal, both regular season and when they inevitably annoy everybody by making the play-in and winning a couple games and losing in the first round to the Celtics or whatever. We're gonna move on now. All of us on 1 point. Let's go to the second question here. And before we get to this, I need to get a ruling before I remind you guys what the question was. I have to get a ruling, a majority rules. We'll just go with the majority here. This question refers to, actually, excuse me, this is for later on, but it's tied to this guy, so it's fine. There's a question coming up later on regarding the leading scorer on the Raptors. We need to determine whether going points per game or if we're going total points scored. We'll just vote. Vivek, I will go with you. Are you going total points scored or points per game as the determining stat for leading scorer or second leading scorer on the Raptors?
I was under the impression that it was points per game, and that's how I answered it. So okay. I'll go with that.
That's fair. Sahal, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with what Vivek said. I'm going to go with points per game as well.
All right, I will go with you guys as well, even though it might come back to bite me. But either way, let's dive into the guy who might be tied up in this conversation a little later on. OG Anunoby, points per game. The over-under was set at 17.5. And if you remember, I went super hard on OG being really good this season, and I think I'm going to benefit from it this year. I took the over. He's at 18.3 points so far. You guys both took the under, so I take the lead. What a miraculous thing. I'm like the Charlotte Hornets here, taking the lead, inevitably doomed to piss it away. Saha, OG, the scoring punch has been a little bit more prominent for OG this season. There's been some ups and downs. There have been some, maybe forced mid-range jumpers that you'd maybe not like to see. Curious on your sort of overall thoughts of OG's offensive performance so far this season.
Yeah, I think obviously whenever we talk about OG, the first thing we mention is that he is a first-team all defensive level player. And for us as people who, watch the Raptors on a consistent basis, what you want to see from OG now is for him to just tie everything together offensively, and for him not to just do that, but do it at a consistent level. I think in the NBA, putting everything together offensively means you're scoring somewhere between 10 and 20 points per game. But for OG now, we want to see a new level, sort of like how we're seeing with Pascal Siakam. And I'm going to take a little bit of the L on Pascal Siakam. I know we're going a little off topic here really quick, but I thought Pascal Siakam last year reached the ceiling, and he clearly didn't. So that has kind of forced me to go the other way with OG and say, OG probably has quite a bit left. And a lot of people look at OG and they go, maybe this isn't the right team for him to fully blossom on. Maybe he's always going to be stuck in that, tertiary role with the Raptors. But I genuinely think if OG can just do what he's doing now and keep it at a consistent level, I think there's going to be tons of games this season and possibly in the postseason if the Raptors can make a run where OG can look like that third or possibly even second star with how Fred VanVleet has been struggling a bit this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with OG, I think I disagree with you a little bit in that I kind of think maybe this is sort of the peak version of OG, and I think that's great. Like, I'm not upset if he, tops out as a 19-point-a-game guy or anything like that. I think it's just for me, like the playmaking just doesn't quite seem like it's ever going to really get there. The handle doesn't quite seem like it's going to get there. And I could be totally wrong. And, we could see the incremental improvement thing that plenty of Raptors past and present have taken part in. But it feels to me like maybe he's kind of topped out as like the third best player on a really good team. And if he's your third best player, you're probably in a pretty good spot considering the two-way impact that he brings. But yeah, I mean, hey, could be totally wrong. Maybe there's another level up there. It'd be cool if these sort of weird sort of jab step mid-rangers would start to fall a little bit more regularly. Let's go quickly to another one before we get to a quick break. Fred VanVleet, catch and shoot attempts per game. Maybe one that's going to tell the tale of the Raptors season just a tad. We set the over-under at 5.5. He was at 4.7 last year. The thinking was, hey, he's going to play off ball more this season. He's going to be very happy in that role. It's going to be great. Everyone's going to be hunky-dory. And not quite that case so far. 4.4, actually fewer catch-and-shoot threes per game this season for Fred than last year. Big V. By the way, we all took the over on the 5.5, so none of us get the point here. I'm still in the lead. It's beautiful. Big V, I'll ask you, is there like a concern at how low this number is? Do you think there's a chance this upticks in the second half of the season? And how sort of illustrative of the Raptors' struggles do you think the Fred VanVleet dip in catch and shoot 3-point attempts is, kind of as part of telling the tale of the season?
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it. I think Fred VanVleet is a huge part of the Raptors. Whether they succeed or not, I think he's a big barometer. I think you look at even, these last two games when he's able to knock down those late threes, like those are things we've come to expect from him, right? Mm-hmm. And these are just, if you had to like draw up a blueprint of how the Raptors win games, you've got his deflections in there, his pick and roll defense, and then you'd have his catch and shoot threes in there as well. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think we all anticipated Pascal and Scottie handling the ball more, and that would entail more opportunities for Fred VanVleet on the catch. So obviously surprising that it's down based on what our expectations were coming into the season. And if you're a Raptors fan rooting for the success of the team, then you're hoping that he can basically have this season be the reverse of last season, right? Yeah. And you go to the All-Star break and be like, okay, let's just forget about what just happened and look like an All-Star the rest of the way.
Sure would be nice. It turns out when Fred VanVleet's hitting his threes, as we've seen in crunch time of the last two games, it very much helps the Raptors' chances of winning said games. A guy who assists on Fred VanVleet threes quite a bit, or at least has in the last couple of games here, is Scottie Barnes, who is the topic of the next question here, quickly before we get to break. Scottie Barnes, assists per game. The over-under was set at 4.5. He was at 3.5 last year. So far, 4.7. I took the under. Vivek took the under. Saha took the over. So Saha gets the point for this one. And I gotta say, I'm not super eager to, I don't think I'm getting this point. I think me and Vivek are screwed because I kind of feel like Scottie Barnes is figuring out exactly how to weaponize the space every team is just kind of granting him. And I do feel like that's going to lead to a whole lot more of Scottie Barnes spraying out passes to dudes from the middle of the floor, which I think bodes well for the Raptors offense and bodes well for Scottie Barnes. Does not bode well for Vivek or I, which is a bummer. With that, we're going to continue on. We're going to get into our final 14 questions and see who will be in the lead at the halfway point. We'll get to that in a sec. But first, got to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar. Of course, you know Built Bar. They are the best tasting protein bars in the game. We've been talking about them on this show for years because they're awesome, and they continue to be awesome. They continue to roll out more and more new flavors, and basically, it's a way to feel like you're being indulgent while actually fueling your body with something that's good for you. It tastes like a candy bar. You get the marshmallow puffs, which are this whole new other marshmallowy delight that feels super indulgent, but they're not. There's 130 calories in your average bar. You get 17 grams of protein, just 4 grams of sugar as well, way less than you're getting in your standard candy bar. And you can go and pick up a box for yourself. Just go to Walmart. They have them at Walmart, the biggest store there is. Go pick up your Built Bars there. The fact that Walmart carries them should speak to the quality of Built Bars, of course. We like them here. They're our dear pals. Go check them out. Pick up a box of Built Bars today. They got seasonal flavors. They got the tried and true classics. They are excellent. Go check them out. All right, we continue on here with your first listen of the day, the halfway point check-in of our Locked On Raptors annual over-unders and props spectacular. Let's go to the next question here. Question number 5 on the board. Gary Trent Jr., 30-plus point games. The over-under was set at 9.5 after he hit 10 last year. He's got 3 30-point games so far this season. On the board here, I took the over. You guys both took the under, so you guys tentatively get the point here, even though I do feel like things are turning in Gary Trent Jr.'s favor of late. He's played excellent basketball. I believe 2 of those 30-point games have come since the new year or very recently. Sahal, are you concerned at all that you might lose the point for this one for Gary Trent Jr.? You and Vivek as well both have the point tentatively here, but are you concerned that we might see 7 30-point games from Gary Trent Jr. in the back half?
I'll say mildly concerned. He has been on fire, I think, in terms of scoring, probably the most consistent Raptor since the new year. The last 5 games, he's been averaging close to 25 points per game, shooting 41% from 3, 45% from the field. So that's huge. That's massive for Gary Trent Jr., especially for a guy that I think most fans are used to being a very streaky player, where you feel like you're kind of on a roller coaster all season long watching Gary Trent Jr. He goes through really dry spells, and then he goes through super hot, streaks. I think with Gary, the important thing is, and I don't know, Sean, is this kind of over under going to count even if Gary Trent Jr. is traded? I think, did we say?
I'm trying to remember what we said. I think we said.
I think we were Raptors, including all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we were too.
Yeah, because I said it high enough that it feels like a full season E type number regardless. So yeah, I feel like it's wherever he ends up. So yeah, he could end up being like an 8th man on a title contender and totally get screwed here. But
exactly, and that's what I'm thinking about too. So, but he's been fantastic for the Raptors, absolutely fantastic, and the Raptors need it as well. Where it seems like the first half of the season, you look at every key player, every core player has struggled, maybe aside from Pascal Siakam this season. So it's been great to see kind of each Raptor pick it up, but Gary Trent Jr. kind of leading the way as of recent for the Raptors.
For sure. I know there are all the reports out there from Mark Stein and folks about the Knicks and the Suns and all these other teams circling for Gary Trent Jr. I am kind of at the point now where I am almost in team keep Gary no matter what and just pay him because he seems like he really helps address the issues the Raptors very clearly have on the roster. I don't know. This is maybe sort of how my thinking is evolving entirely. That, the entire league lusting after the very good players at the Raptors should maybe be an indication to the Raptors that they have some very good players on hand, and maybe just a little more time to let this thing kind of figure itself out is worth granting this group. But, I guess that's a very predictable take from old me. We're going to continue on here. Get into the next couple. Minutes played, either ors. We'll rattle off these ones really quickly. More total minutes played. Thad Young or Otto Porter Jr. This is depressing. I had Otto Porter Jr., as did Sahal. Vivek had Thad, and Thad is at 579 minutes to Otto's 146. Will Thad add to the 579 at any point this season? Who knows, but Otto's out for the year, so Vivek is going to get this point, and that is upsetting. The next one is more total minutes played between Gary Trent Jr. or Precious Achiuwa, and I said Precious. You guys both said Gary, and you guys are going to get the point on this one, as my lead is now a 2-point deficit behind the both of you, as we all knew was going to happen. Man, just upsetting. And yeah, of course, the injury dooms Precious here. Had Precious played, I think Gary still probably hasn't beaten minutes so far, but I feel like second half of the season they could be pretty equitable if we see more of Precious bombing threes. That's a welcome sign from him for sure. Let's go now to where I make my hay. Who leads the team in total steals? You guys thought I was crazy for saying OG Anunoby, while Vivek said Fred and Sahal said Gary Trent Jr. And I'm just destroying you both. 82 total steals for OG, 56 for Gary, 51 for Fred. Vivek, the steals thing with OG, I don't think anyone, even me, the sort of the medium himself, did not see this coming from OG in terms of just like the prolificness of the counting stats. It doesn't feel unsustainable though, does it? Like he feels like he's just going to walk into 2 or 3 steals every single game because he's a monster, no?
Yes. It feels completely sustainable. It feels like he can pick anyone's pocket at any time, and he's having an absolutely monster defensive season, and hopefully that means he will make an all defensive team. I think there was a media vote that was recently done, and based on the way the names were listed, I'm going to assume there was only the three bigs that were ahead of him. In Brook Lopez, Jaren Jackson Jr., and I forget who
Bam?
the other. Yeah, maybe Bam. And then it was OG. So basically, he's being considered the best wing defender in the NBA. So that sounds about right based on his performance this season. And yeah, hopefully that's something that continues. And again, we've had Pascal and OG put up these incredible seasons, and Gary has caught along. And now it's just a case of getting a couple more, in Fred and Precious, and Scottie is trending the right way as well.
Yeah, it's he's been awesome. He's been just a total delight. Again, there's a reason the entire league seems to want OG Anunoby. Maybe again an indicator that the Raptors are doing all right having him on their roster. Let's go to the next one. Who will be the second leading scorer on the Toronto Raptors? This is where the ruling from earlier comes into play. In total points, it is OG Anunoby who I picked. However, per game, it is Gary Trent Jr. just by a hair, by literally 0.1 points over Fred VanVleet and 0.2 points over OG Anunoby. It's 18.5, 18.4, 18.3. The three of them. So this one is anybody's game. I suppose it's neither of our games, and none of our games if Gary Trent Jr. gets it, because you guys both said Fred. So none of us get the tentative point for this one. This one's going to go down to the wire. Sahal, quick first blush. Way things are trending right now. Who do you feel like is getting the point here? Myself for OG, you guys for Fred, or nobody for Gary Trent Jr.?
I think, as kind of odd as this may sound, I think me and Vivek are in pretty good shape, because we've almost seen the worst of Fred VanVleet in the first half of the season in terms of efficiency, in terms of scoring. He just hasn't looked like himself. And one of the strangest parts to the first half of the season for him has been the fact that a lot of the shots that he takes are shots that he was making last season as well. So it's not like, the quality of his shot has drastically, decreased in this first portion of the season. I think when you look at Fred, it's almost like, okay, now we're just waiting for him to get back to the mean and get back to what we're used to seeing, which is why you mentioned, last season it was very hot in the first half, and then he started to kind of, dwindle down a little in the second. So I think we're going to see a little bit of the opposite of that, like you mentioned. So I'm still pretty confident with this pick, but man, Gary looks great. Gary looks great.
Sure
I mentioned that already. And OG, I can't take anything away from him either. He's maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if he's, beside Pascal Siakam, the most consistent Raptor for the rest of the season in terms of his scoring. So it could go any way, but I haven't lost full confidence just yet.
Yeah, just for clarity. Yeah. Say for example, Gary is at 18.5 and he gets traded. Yes. Do Fred and OG have to surpass that 18.5, or are they like?
I will be just going to Basketball Reference and sorting by points. And so whoever is second behind Siakam at the end of the season, regardless of total games played, that's how I will be determining this one. If that's fair for everybody around the table. It could. So I actually feel pretty good about this, because I don't think you're getting the Fred points, because I don't think he's going to score more than 13 points or so on the Clippers once he's playing for them down the stretch. Let's go and now we will move into the final round, the second half. That is the second half of our over-unders. These ones a lot more sort of up in the air, a little less determined. But through the first half, it's 4 points Vivek, 4 points Sahal, 3 points for me. And we will get to the second half and rattle these off quick times in just a sec. Before we do that, however, got to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. And look, maybe I should be hiring someone to help me make my picks every year, because I'm clearly very, very bad at it. And much like me hiring someone to make my picks, when you're hiring someone for your business, it is a high-stakes enterprise. You have to hire someone who's going to help you grow your team and succeed going forward. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools that go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on job qualifications, all on one platform as well. So you're not having people apply for your job who don't fit the bill also being recommended as people you should interview. You're saving time. You're being more efficient. It's all wonderful. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we continue on here, moving into the back part of the show as we go through some of the sort of more team-oriented, big-picture over-unders, many of which are still yet to be determined. Let's dive in. Toronto Raptors to make the All-Star game. We set the over-under at 0.5. We all took the over. It feels like Pascal Siakam, even with the Raptors' struggles, is going to be a no-brainer all-star. I can't imagine there's ever been a player who averaging 25, 8, and 6 to not make an all-star game. So I feel like we're all going to get the point there. I will tentatively pencil it in for us, even though it is actually yet to pass. But maybe I just want to boost our scores to make us feel better. Let's go to the next one. Number of players to score 30-plus points in a game. The over-under was set at 5.5. There were 5 last year. You'll remember the season before, there were 10 different Raptors. Shout out Paul Watson and Jalen Harris among the group there to score 30 points in the Tampa season. We all took the over on 5.5. We are currently sitting at 4 Raptors having done it in OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent Jr. Actually, just 3, because we have not seen Scottie Barnes do it, and no one from the bench has gone off for 30-plus, if my math is correct. I don't think that's happened. Delano Banton got close against the Pistons once, but I think he ended up with 27. Vivek, I will ask you, are there 2 candidates for you on the team who you think might go and score 30 points in a game? Where are you at with that? I guess you need 3 now that, you need Scottie, you would assume, and then 2 more.
No. You just need the 2 more, right? You've got Gary, Fred, Pascal, and OG, all 4
Oh,
of them.
yeah, you're right. I'm bad at counting. You are totally right. 2 more guys. So Scottie plus 1. Do you think that's doable?
Not really. I think, you look at the options between Boucher and Precious. I don't really see that happening. Like, I think Otto might have been an interesting candidate if
like a Danielle Marshall style?
Yeah, exactly. Just has a game where he knocks down like 8 threes or something like that, and gets over that 30 mark. But I feel like at this point, barring a trade, it's probably not happening.
Yeah, I think maybe you're right, but also the Tampa season, I think, is maybe a bit of a blueprint here. If the Raptors season goes off the rails, which I kind of feel like it's stabilizing right now, and it's not going to go all the way off the rails, but like there will be a time where Malachi Flynn gets 39 minutes and just happens into 31 points, maybe. Maybe not. Chris Boucher is tough because he did it a bunch in the Tampa season, but I think without the 3-point accuracy, he's just kind of, the math problem is a thing for him and his limited playing time. Certainly Thad's not going to do it. It might have to be outside help. So I guess to go back to my previous comment about Fred, Terrence Mann's going to get 35 points for the Raptors in a game. Wow. Can you believe it? Scottie also has to do it. He has not done it yet. He's got 28 as a season high. I would imagine he'll have a game where he goes off, but certainly possible that he doesn't as well. So as it stands right now, I'm not going to award a fake point for that one, because it's too up in the air. The next one here, which player leads the Raptors in total dunks? Last year it was Precious and Boucher, tied with 67. Both Vivek and I took OG in this one. Saha took Precious, and we're going to get it, Vivek, because OG, 70 dunks so far on the season. And like has happened far too often in the past, Vivek takes a lead. 6 points to 5 for both Sahal and I. We know OG's dunked a whole lot. Sahal, I'm going to ask you, who do you think is the best dunker on the Raptors right now?
That's a great question, because we've heard the last few years about OG's kind of his athleticism that he shows in practice that we don't really get to see on a consistent basis with the Raptors. But we know by now that OG's an athletic freak, even at his size. That's a great question, and I'm gonna go with Precious Achua. I'm gonna go with Precious. I feel like Precious is a very bouncy guy for his size.
Mm-hmm.
He's also very strong, and he's capable of doing a multitude of wild dunks. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Precious, but I think you can go a couple ways with this.
He really is the king of finding a hilariously good dunk out of a busted possession, like he did against the Hornets this week with the worst offensive possession I've ever seen, leading to him just kind of being alone in the middle of the floor for a dunk. I think OG's going to go away with this one pretty comfortably. He's 13th in the entire NBA in dunks, but Precious feels like he's got a higher dunk ceiling to me. Let's go to the next one here. Total wins against Eastern Conference opponents. The over-under was set at 29.5. Last year, they were 30 and 22. I took the under. You guys both took the over, which means I move into a tie for first with Big V because they are currently 12 and 16 against the Eastern Conference. They're going to have to do some work here to get they have 24 games left against the East, which means they will have to
18 and 6.
See, this is why we bring people smarter than me on the podcast. 18 and 6 against the East to close the year. I suppose it's possible if they go on a heater, but as it stands right now, I'm in line for that point, and I'm happy about that. Let's go on now to the final offensive ranking for your Toronto Raptors. I have pulled up the, I think I had it. I lost the page. Give me 1 sec, because I want to just confirm before I erroneously hand out points to somebody. Either way, we had the over-under set at 14th. Under means that they were going to be worse than 14th. Over means they were going to be better than 14th. Last year, they were 15th. This year, the Toronto Raptors on offense, it's a real dramatic one. Drum roll. The Raptors on offense this season are 15th. So those who took the under are correct, which means Vivek and I add to our lead. We both get the points. So, Hall, you took the over. I'm going to ask you, Vivek, are you at all concerned here about the Raptors getting better on offense and thus losing us this point?
I think it's possible. I do
too.
Like so, for example, Gary's 3-point shooting has come around. OG's 3-point shooting has come around. If Fred's shot comes around, then I think that opens up so much more. Like we talk about Pascal and Scottie's playmaking, the options that can open up. Like Fred is the guy that needs to knock down shots in terms of who you put at the top of the list. And so I think that opens up a lot. And, I think the biggest thing is the inconsistency we've seen from the team. So it's like, even though you look at the last 2 games and say, oh, if this carries over, then you've got something. But we've said if this carries over probably 10 times this season now, and it has.
Yes.
So.
They still have yet to win more than 2 games in a row. They're going to break the streak tonight, baby. It's going to be miraculous when it happens. Yeah, I don't feel great about it. Per Cleaning the Glass, they are currently 16th. I pulled from NBA.com, as I usually do for these, but it's very much on the table that the Raptors could slightly improve their second last ranked half-court offense and have it mean good things because of how devastating they still are in transition. Still the number 1 team in points added per 100 possessions via transition per Cleaning the Glass. They're very good. And they've propped up a not so good rest of the ship with it. The next one here, final defensive ranking. We were all very high on the Raptors defense coming into the season. The over-under was set at 7.5. If you said over, you thought they were going to be better than that. Under, worse than that. We all took the over. So we are all currently not getting that point because right now they are 13th in defensive rating at 112.7 points allowed per 100 possessions. So Hall, the defense, similar question to the offense question. Do you think there's any chance the Raptors put it together like they did in the second half of last season after starting horribly? They finished, I believe, as the 6th best defense after January 1st. I don't know if I've quite seen enough to feel good about them having that meteoric a rise this year, but do you think there is some improvement to make this at least interesting before the season is over?
Yeah, like you said, they're going to have to make quite a jump to make this interesting. It's a little difficult because you look at the team, the sum of all the parts. You look at OG and you look at some of the other defenders on this team, and you go, these guys have really, really good individual defenders, and they We've seen them lock in defensively as a team, regardless of who's on the court. Their bench has been a little bit of a weak spot this season, but I think as long as you have one all-defensive player in OG kind of surrounded by guys who can really lock in, like Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., I think you will be in the discussion for sure. It's just difficult for me, Sean, because this team's still lacking that elite rim protector, right?
Yeah.
And or even a good rim protector. I think you look at 2-3 years ago and they had Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, and before that they had Jakob Poeltl.
Those were the days, man. Those were the days.
Yeah, and we're still right now in Vision 6-9. So I think a lot of fans as well as media are kind of assuming that the Raptors will make some sort of move to kind of shore up that center position, that rim protecting. So we'll see. I think it's one of those things where I said I was confident, a few questions ago with the Fred VanVleet scoring one, but this one I'm kind of on the fence. So I think that's probably the right place to be.
This one's going to be determined, I think, by what they do with the deadline, what direction they take. If they do go and add someone, then I could see them kind of maybe salvaging this thing a little bit. It should be said, they're only 1.7 points per 100 possessions out of 7th in the NBA. It's pretty clustered in the middle of the pack. The Celtics are currently 7th. So if you think the Raptors can be a better defense than the Heat in 8th, I don't think that's crazy. They only need 1.5 points to pass the Heat to make up. So it's on the table for sure with half a season to go. I do think I'm encouraged by the one non-6'9" guy, Christian Koloko, showing some signs here of maybe being a little bit more reliable to have him out there for longer stretches, because when he's been on the floor this season, the Raptors allow like less than 100 points per 100 possessions. They're really, really good and stout. And if, that Koloko, Boucher, Achua trio can kind of maybe get some momentum going here and become a bit of a staple trio off the bench, then maybe, just maybe, they can salvage a decent enough defense here to move into the top 7 and get us all a point. Regular season wins. This one's not going to go well. The over-under was 46.5. We all took the over. We all took them to win over 50 games in our individual picks. And so because none of us are getting the point here, I'm going to allow one mulligan. A mulligan. We get to reclaim, restate our pick for their win total this season, knowing that we all are embarrassing and got it totally wrong off the start. They are not going to win 52 or 51 or 53 games this year unless they go on something historic in the back half as a heater. But we can, restate our picks here. So halfway through the season, they're 18-23 on pace for 36 wins. I will set the over-under at 36.5. The revamped over-under. Vivek, I will go to you. Over or under 36.5.
Oh, man. Was not ready for this.
We love it. The drama. It's sports, baby.
You know what? I am going to go with over.
Okay.
As much as, tanking might be in play.
Yes.
I think this is a team that all indications are they're not willing to let go of the rope. And I'm going to bet on Fred and him looking more like himself in this post All-Star break, or even post right now, post 2022.
Yeah.
And say that makes a difference. And 18-23 right now. Sure. Let's go over 36.5.
We love it. Sahal, over or under 36.5.
Before I answer this, Sean, can you remind me where we are in terms of the standings?
7 points for Vivek and I, 5 for you. Theoretical points, of course, not in stone. It's in pencil for now.
So my heart is telling me my heart and my brain are both telling me to agree with Vivek, right? Because he made some really good points. Strategically, though.
Yes, the Sean move. It always works so well.
Yeah. You know what? I don't feel like this is the right time to do the whole strategically thing. So I'm going to agree with Vivek. I think Masai Ujiri is going to look at this team and he's going to go, you know what? There's no way this team as a whole is this bad, to put it the most plainly. I think a lot of guys have had poor starts to the season, and we've mentioned that ad nauseum on every single Raptors media channel that you can think of. So I think the Raptors will be closer to 40 wins. So I'm going to take the over 36 and a half, right? The list 36 and a half. So I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, I am also going to take the over just because my sort of prediction now for how the season is going to go. I know I made the joke about Fred VanVleet getting traded, and that could still happen, and this still sort of be the philosophy. But I think the Raptors are going to win enough games between now and the deadline where they might pull the 500 or better, and I think that's going to maybe entice the front office to just let it be for now and sort of reassess in the summertime. I know the free agent questions of Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet loom large, but also pay them and figure it out later, I think, is a totally reasonable thing that the Raptors have done plenty in the past as well. And so, look, I know a lot of people will freak out at this because it's, they're not tanking for Wemby. There's, I think, room for patience for a team that was not expected to win a championship this season, regardless of what revisionist history you want to do. That was never on the table this year. Second round was kind of the ceiling, it was perceived. It seemed like maybe conference finals if everything breaks perfectly. And I think the front office is not going to be sort of tricked into thinking the first half of the season is the whole story of this team, considering within this calendar year, they went on a 34-17 run to make the playoffs last year and be the 5 seed. Like, that is just as valid an indicator of what this team is as the start of this season was to me. And my bet is the front office will opt for patience, as they have plenty of times in the past with various cores of the Raptors, and say, hey, this isn't what we wanted. This is not the season of growth that we expected, but maybe this is sort of a 1-year setback before they take off in a way that we thought they might, with some roster tweaks and some, addressing some of the obvious holes on the roster in the offseason. I think we could see them kind of stay the course here and be a play-in team and just sort of let it ride that way. So I'm taking the over as well.
Might I add, Sean, really quick?
Yeah.
Just before we end, I think if the Raptors don't opt for patience, which I think is still possible with us, I think a month away from the trade deadline. I believe it's February 9th on a Thursday. So if they do not opt for patience, even if the Raptors are competitive in this next month of basketball, I think the Raptors could still possibly get better if you move one of these guys that have been rumored, whether it's Fred or Gary or whoever it is, right? Because the Raptors' problem this year, amongst many, I think, has been their bench. I think one of the most glaring problems. So if you see Gary get moved, hypothetically for 2 or 3, rotation players or whatever it may be, or 2 or 3 contributors or 1 or 2 contributors, I think Masai will look at this team and still think that, hey, if I'm going to trade one of these guys, especially if like I said, Gary's averaging 25 points per game in the last 5. So if these guys are hot going into the trade deadline, it might make Masai go, you know what, I'm going to make a tiny tweak, but this team's still going to be competitive. So I won't rule out that a trade necessarily means that the Raptors are kind of just mailing it in. I think that Masai may still want this team to be competitive at the trade deadline.
I think that's possible too. It might be hard to do if you trade away Fred, considering he has ball handling and shooting, which is 2 of the things the Raptors desperately need, and you're taking away from what is already a weakness. But they could rebalance things, and I think Siakam is good enough. Barnes is showing enough to me. If you keep Trent and OG, I think there's enough there to not just be a full-on tank it out team. And I think there's negative value to just punting the back part of the season, truthfully. Like, when you have young players, you have to at least try a little bit, I think, if you are a serious franchise. Like, look at the Pistons, man. Tangent before we wrap up, because we only have a couple here. We have a couple here to go, but there's no points to be handed out yet because it's too far out and hard to determine. But the whole idea of tanking, it just, in theory, on paper, if it works, amazing. The Raptors have already had it kind of work. They lucked out. They got the lottery luck that some teams wait a decade to get, and they got Scottie Barnes. The downside of tanking is you become the Pistons, who right now are worse than they were 2 years ago, with worse metrics up and down the board. Guys have completely been brought up under losing environments where nothing matters. I think that takes a toll on players. And when you have players as good as Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby and Scottie Barnes, to just ask them to turn it off and not try, there's detrimental effects to that. It sucks. So anyway, that's just my sort of side point on why tanking is bad. Lastly here, the last two. Total postseason wins played included. 3.5 was the number set as the over-under. I took the under. You guys both took the over. This obviously could feature 2 play-in wins plus a couple of wins in a series. I feel pretty good about where I'm at for this one. I'm not going to assign a fake point because it's just so unknowable at the moment. And then lastly, season-ending award winners. I want to get your thoughts on this, V, quickly before we wrap. MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, All Defense, All Rookie, All NBA, all of those things on the table here. 1.5 was the over-under set. I feel like this one's going to go down to the wire. OG feels like he's going to make an All-Defense team, so that's 1. I think it's going to come down to whether Pascal makes All-NBA or not, and I'm curious, Big V, how confident are you in that? Again, I took the over. You guys both took the under on this one. This is going to be down to the wire.
Yeah, I think as we go down the list of the stuff that we've mentioned in the second half of this over-unders, it's basically going to come down to what happens at the deadline. So yeah. I think even with Pascal's award, if the Raptors choose to lean the other way and, go towards getting the highest lottery pick possible, then that significantly hurts Pascal's chances of making an All-NBA team, right? And that's also something that makes it difficult to take that route, right? The conversation with Pascal, where, hey, if he makes an All-NBA team, he becomes eligible for the Supermax. So how are you really going to convince him that that is the best route? I think if you had to lean one way right now, obviously based on Pascal's play, you would say that he makes the All-NBA team, but team success matters. And so if they choose to go the other direction, then he could definitely miss out.
Well, that brings us to the end of the halfway point check-in on this, the most grand of Locked On Raptors traditions, the over-unders and props spectacular. You will see the live scoreboard update as we are halfway through. Vivek and I are tied with 7 points, which means I get 0.25 of a title here, and I'm writing it in the books. You get 0.25 of a title as well here, Big V, to add to your all-time mark. We will, of course, reconvene at the end of the season to determine exactly who goes home with this year's over-unders title. I gotta say, boys, I'm feeling all right about where I'm sitting. I've never been looking this good before halfway through the year, so I'm gonna take it, run with it, and it will warm me in my heart for the next 41 games plus maybe some playoffs playing. Who's to say? Either way, Big V, Sahal, thanks so much for hanging out today. Big V, anything you would like to promote?
Just the usual stuff. You can head to Raptors.com to find my content, and otherwise you can follow all my takes on Twitter at Vivek M. Jacob.
Amazing. Sahal, what you got?
Yeah, same thing with me and Raptors Republic. And Sean did mention at the beginning of the show that we are having a very cool event on Tuesday, February 7th, which should be a lot of fun. Sean will be there. I will be there. A bunch of Raptors Republic content creators will be there, current and former, which is cool to say. Vivek, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm not 100% sure if you're going to be there. I would love to see you there.
I would love to get an invite.
He's got the wrestling cape. He's going to just descend from the ceiling. Big V's here. Yeah.
Guess what? We'll do this on Locked On Raptors. On behalf of Raptors Republic, I would like to extend our greatest invite to one of our former fantastic writers in Vivek Jacob. So there's your invite. It is on the record on Locked On Raptors. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you there as well. Should be fun.
It's going to be a great old time. Come hang out. Again, send an email to lockedonraptors@gmail.com with a screenshot showing that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel of Locked On Raptors, of course, and a note on who your favorite deep cut Raptor of all time is. And if you do that, you will be added into the draw with our pal Martin Miller, who is the first entry. Please go and do that, and we will hopefully see you February 7th at the Rivoli. Tickets are also down in the description, but you can win tickets if you enter the draw that I just laid out. We will leave it off there. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow. Our pal Jamar Hines will be along, also a Raptors Republic man, as we will break down Raptors Hornets to close out your week. In the meantime, meantime, go listen to Locked On Leafs. They beat the Preds last night. They're very good. They're the best Toronto team right now, which is strange to say, but it's just what's happening. So go check out Locked On Leafs with Mike and Dave. They're doing a great job. We will talk to you on Friday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye.